You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another, interesting episode of Ask Drone U. It's December 23rd, and the FCC officially added DJI to the covered list. But that means the DJI ban is here and so much more. This is not just a DJI ban, a Huawei ban, a parts and components ban, and I think it's even sending the domestic base and the industry domestically for a whirlwind because there are unanswered questions. I mean, here the FCC is even mentioning how motors, as notated in the NDAA from 2025, shall not be imported and manufactured as well. Welcome to the show, Rob. What are you thinking about this, man?
I don't feel very welcome. Not by you, but by the subject matter. It's like a little bit of a kick in the groin, even though it was expected. And it's interesting that there actually is not a specific reference to DJI. None at all within this. It goes far beyond that, and it's hard to tell how far.
It really is.
If we can even tell how far. You know, it seems like at this point we're never like the first ones to discuss these things anymore. I don't think that's super important to us. We really want to digest it. But
because there's a lot here. A lot of people are saying, oh yeah, the DJI ban is here. Don't worry. You can still fly your existing drones. You can even buy models that have already been approved by the FCC. There's just nothing new. While all of that is true, there's so much more to this than just that particular point. Because when you are saying any UAS system, service, component, or part is on the covered list, that is so much more than DJI.
Yeah, it's wild. And I have to say, and maybe this is just my kind of fight or flight response to situations like this, because I was sitting in the airport last night waiting to fly home and reading a bunch of different perspectives, and as many as were out, and watching some of the videos that had been put out already on this. And there is a lot of doom and gloom. Let me say I understand it, but I think the fight in me is like, okay, and we've talked about this before. Change is inevitable. Sometimes it's more extreme than others. It seems this is very extreme. What are we going to do about it? And what is everything going to look like in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months? And I think it's really important to maintain that perspective and not, there's just like, people are going into like deep depression over this. And I don't think we need to do that.
No, I don't.
First of all, we need to understand it better as things unfold over the coming weeks.
Yeah, I think acting out of emotion only racks up our credit card bills, Rob. So I don't think...
Especially this time of year. Yeah. More presents for everybody, including myself.
You get a drone.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh, man. So, no, it's challenging. And the way that this has been laid out it is not giving us much other than sucks to be a drone pilot. You know?
Yeah, it's this is definitely not what a lot of us expected. I mean, let's read right out of the public notice, which mentioned that this one particular point that's important is that it says, we make these additions to the covered list based on a national security determination made by an executive branch interagency body with appropriate national security expertise, including appropriate national security agencies. Because a lot of people are like, so who even did this? Well, if you look at the annotation here, it says the White House convened an executive branch interagency body with appropriate national security expertise, including appropriate national security agencies identified in the Secure Networks Act. The National Security Determination is attached in full Appendix B for public notice. But let's go further. Let's dive right into this because honestly, the first paragraph is pretty fascinating. Yeah. Again, this is so much more than a DJI ban. UAS and UAS critical components must be produced in the United States. This will reduce the risk of direct UAS attacks and disruptions, unauthorized surveillance, sensitive data exfiltration, and other UAS threats to the homeland. Furthermore, it will enable our domestic UAS and UAS critical component manufacturing is resilient and independent, a critical national security imperative. UAS are inherently dual use. They are both commercial platforms and potentially military or paramilitary sensors and weapons. UAS and UAS critical components include data transmission devices, communication systems, flight controllers, ground control stations, controllers, navigation systems, batteries, smart batteries, and motors produced in a foreign country could enable persistent surveillance, data exfiltration, and destructive operations over U.S. territory, including over World Cup and Olympic venues and other mass gathering events. U.S. cybersecurity and critical infrastructure guidance has repeatedly highlighted how foreign manufactured UAS can be used to harvest sensitive data, used to enable remote unauthorized access, or disabled at will via software updates.
And there is so much there to dig into, as people have been trying to do to the best of their and our ability. Number one, the list of items there. For example, motors. And I'm really seeking to understand as a layman in this field, how can motors enable persistent surveillance? Or how can motors enable data exfiltration other than like an indirect source of utility to make that happen? Is that why they're saying that? I don't understand why some of these are on there other than let's just put everything in there and maybe work backwards.
I'm sure that's got to be part of the strategy. It does, sitting here trying to answer that question objectively with motors as the particular example, what could go wrong? Like other than like purposeful seizure of the motor to cause a crash, to cause, a stampede effect at a venue or something like that. But that's like such a small
Exactly.
risk profile. Yeah, I don't know. It is interesting, as you said in pre-show, how they mentioned the World Cup and Olympic venues.
Yeah, they mentioned those. And like we talked about pre-show, if that's going to be, if that's a concern, which of course it is, it has to be, and there have to be extreme measures taken to protect everybody that's a part of that. But in terms of the drone piece of that puzzle, this needed to happen 5 years ago in order for it to matter, because there's millions of drones in the US already. So I don't quite understand why they would bring that out other than as an example of, because they don't really tie together because the drones are already here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, I think obviously are we talking about, what was it? The 2020, what year are the Olympics going to LA? Isn't that 28 or 30 or something like that? I don't know. Anyway.
But the World Cup is 2026.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely good point.
So I don't know. There's just so much vagueness to all of this. And I don't like that from our government. Is
this unprecedented? I mean, is this type of action unprecedented? And if it is unprecedented, does that lead to the brevity of the situation in the eyes of this White House? Meaning that, like, are we that close to some sort of war where we would require commercial drones and AKA paramilitary systems in order to succeed, and why it's so important to develop the supply chains necessary to actually survive in such a war? Meaning, is the threat of war more serious than we think? Is the issue of the supply chain more serious than we think? Is that really what's behind this? Because the reasoning that's listed in here is extremely multivariate. This is not about a security leak. This is so much more than that.
It is a lot more than that. And I don't think we can know. We just are not privy to the information. We're not part of the meetings. We're certainly not privy to even who made this determination.
Yeah.
Much less what went into the evaluation. And then we have some relationships, you in particular, with people that are kind of in the know at some level as to the things they're looking at. But like you just said, those particular issues that have sort of been dug into over the last few years, this goes beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
particularly with respect to just going so broad with foreign entities or foreign countries. That's crazy to me. I mean, I don't know. Does that mean the parrot's out? Does that mean the wingtra's out?
Well, and so this
I don't
brings
understand.
up an important question, absolutely, for domestic manufacturers or manufacturers that are not Chinese but are not American either, which is essentially what you're saying is, what about the wingtras of the world? What about, what about Parrot, which is French? What about all these things? It's not clear here too. And I mean, it's not clear that if you have a manufacturer and or a drone, normally with the blue list, it's drone specific. So if you have a drone on the blue list, then it is assumed that you would be exempt from this particular covered list finding. And I say that because this is really clear that it's any foreign country.
That is the way it's stated.
It is not Chinese or Malaysia or
the BRICS or nothing like that.
It is everyone except the USA.
So don't we as America produce things or manufacture things that we use regularly in Mexico?
That's a good
point. Does that count? If we're going to be producing because we can go across the border and have a good relationship, just keep all the drugs and cartels sort of aside for now, if you can, and think about having factories over there that produce things that are high quality that we use here in this realm, let's say. I could see that happening, but maybe it won't now. I don't know. It just seems like it's almost a stupid thing to say that you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It just minimizes it almost. But I don't know what to think about this because it's so broad and it's so vague. It is so broad and it is so vague. One thing I can say is I can put on my Rob Finance hat and say it's probably a good idea to buy UMAC. That is just gonna, yeah, no, you're right. I thought about that as well. And I'm like, there's certain, like, for example, pharmaceutical companies that I won't buy. I don't care how much money I'd make because I so do not believe in them. Same thing with that one. There's other ways to make money. This seems like a Warrior Trading Momo stock because on December 12th, it went up like 20% in a day. Yeah, it's up 40% in 5 days. Anyway. Interesting indeed, Rob, but we must present all the findings. We must here at Drone U. Which brings up an important point. We put out a YouTube video. I put out a YouTube video saying that rumor on the street is that Trump's going to come in last minute and axe this thing and just add crazy tariffs to DJI. Sounds like they did this in his office. It sure the way they make it sound. It sure does. I shouldn't be laughing with such evil laugh, but it absolutely does. I mean, when I read this to you in the conference room, you were like, yeah, I couldn't get any vaguer because it's the White House convened an executive branch interagency body with appropriate national security expertise. We got to go through and define every damn one of those words. This is like what I'm worried about with, people don't know this, but I was going to do a show on the fiscal year 2026 NDAA, and I reshot it like 10 times because there was just so much information in it. And before I could get the show out, it was on Trump's desk and they signed it. And one of the most imperative things in there is that it's giving state and local law enforcement the authority to quote unquote mitigate your drone if it's deemed a credible threat. I have not heard some more subjective shit than seriously. Hey, Billy Bob, do you hear you can shoot the drones out? I got deputized. Let's go. I got deputized. Oh man, it's funny that it's not funny. Like it's not funny. Terrible. It's not funny. I'm trying to laugh it off. So there's a lot of vagueness, vaguity. I don't know what the right word is. There's a lot of vaguity. Broadiness. Politicking, vaguity. Anyway, so practically speaking, it is pretty clear that we're going to be able to keep and fly the drones that we have. Yes. Hence pissing off a guy that was going to buy one of our drones. Whew. Sorry, wow. Buddy. We might have avoided disaster there. Seriously, I don't know if we want that drone in that fella's hands. No. I really didn't mean to piss you off that bad, but my goodness, a little humanity would be nice. Yeah. A little, yeah. Anyways, that's beside the point. This does bring up one more thing that I want to say before we forget, which is this also states that if all these entities as stated under the 2025 NDAA under Section 1709, this means
that if DJI received an FCC clearance on a particular model, they should be allowed to still release it. It's just any future models beyond today, which would mean that DJI might launch the Avata 360 here because they got approval last week.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it suggests. That seems to be the reasonable conclusion of all of this. And so I'm thinking, you and I were talking about this as well, the drones possibly don't even need to be in the US right now.
Yeah.
As long as the models were approved, they could be sitting anywhere in the world and make their way here and they'd be okay.
Yeah.
Because they were already approved. That's one way that I would interpret this. Of course, the big question is, how long are these drones going to last in terms of maintenance and new parts and just all of that stuff?
Something that just hit me too is like, what about the anti-gravity? Because this says any UAS not manufactured domestically.
Well, that one's been approved already.
That's true.
It's being sold.
Actually, that's true. Never mind that. Yeah. Well, I guess we're only going to get one version of that.
I guess so. But then, I mean, when you really think about the people that affects, I mean, even like the FPV guys that just want to fly and go race their drones around a park or whatever. My goodness. And this actually comes a little bit, I don't know, you can tell me if you think this is a stretch in sort of comparing this to gun control, because the bad guys, if there was gun control, God forbid in America, the bad guys will have guns still.
Yeah.
Well, especially in America, because there's so many damn guns in America. But isn't that true with drones as well? You don't think that if they're going to really want to use drones for some of the nefarious things that we're talking about here as potentialities, they're still going to be able to get them?
Yeah, that's actually...
Whatever they want, whatever they need.
I see your point.
It's like the cartel gets them now. Do you think?
Well, that was actually just in the Wall Street Journal about how the cartel went to Ukraine to train.
Yeah.
So, which is fascinating.
Yeah, they probably... don't get me started. Let's not go there.
Let's not go there.
Yeah. Let's stay on this. But there is going to be a concern about whether or not these drones are going to be able to be maintained for the foreseeable future. And so that's the big question. Yes, it stretches out the time frame of transferring over to American drones, but what American drones are people even going to transfer over to? It seems pretty clear that none of the American manufacturers care to fill in that $2,000 to $10,000 drone.
Yeah, I saw one post on Instagram that was like, I can't recommend any drone below $2,000 that's American made. It's like, well, because it doesn't exist. Like, what do you mean you can't recommend? Like,
that barely exists with a DJI drone.
Yeah, so it's really interesting the times that we live in. I think this is all going to have to get worked out and flushed, because one of the things that I studied at UNM, because before I got the degree that's hanging on the wall, I was pre-law. And one of the things that we talked about is how in the United States, corporations actually have rights similar to humans, and how it's been a very controversial legal tact by many. And it's also the backbone of the financial stability here in the United States, and why we've become the world leader in finances because of that. So that being said, I wonder, could you see DJI suing the FCC?
Didn't they already sue our government and they lost?
Yeah, but this would be specific, I guess, against this particular order, because they're not classifying who was really behind this other than a cybersecurity body of professional experts.
I would imagine that they could absolutely sue.
I have a feeling they got them at the flu shot area.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I wouldn't be surprised if there are lawsuits out of this from DJI and potentially others, given how broad it is.
Yeah, because this means Anzu, this means that Sky Rover, this means Wingcha, this means like even drone soccer. Like, what's going to happen to drone soccer? What's going to happen to Orca? You know, what's going to happen to, there's a lot of manufacturers that have popped up. Because when you include motors too, I don't think there's any domestically manufactured motors right now. I know Unusual Machines is working on it in Orlando, because we did that news story about how they opened up a 70,000 square foot facility. But it was my understanding it's under construction. So to be up and running a couple years? Well, and that begs the question, is this going to like start to be enforced in 6 months? Is there a timeline on that, or is this like boom?
Isn't it effective today? So when you talk about that enforcement, what level of enforcement? Meaning the ability for a DJI, for the manufacturers to I guess I'll ask this backing up a little bit. I don't really know the process. Apparently, the DJI people communicate with the U.S. government, and they provide all the specs, and the U.S. government gives them the U.S. seal of approval.
Yeah, which in here that's talked about. They say that the way that the current supply chain is, there's no way for the U.S. government to do proper due diligence. That things are being hidden essentially. So I think that this is also a systems-based methodology of like, okay, if you're not going to let us truly do our research, then, well, you can't bring it here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And so maybe that's where some of the carve-outs can come, is when you put people in a position where they have no choice, that might cause them to say, okay, we have some ideas of how we can set up a system so that you can check things.
Yeah.
Because we want to be in the U.S. market.
Yeah.
And so maybe it leads to some more of that sort of interaction and an engagement between the parties. And when I say between the parties, there's a lot of parties.
Yeah, again, this is
we don't even know who they are.
This is not just DJI. There's a whole table of people in here. None of them are DJI. Like, it starts out with a table and in Huawei's number one.
The DJI just falls into that last category, I guess.
Uncrewed aircraft systems and UAS critical components produced in a foreign country, and all communications and video surveillance equipment and services listed in section 1709. So 1709 also did talk about LiDAR. That's going to be really interesting too. So
it is going to be really interesting. There's going to have to be more information that comes out before we can draw any really concrete conclusions. Well, I guess that's not entirely true. I mean, we know it's banning drones and components from. It's just so hard to believe that it went this far, given what we do not produce in the U.S.
I don't think anyone saw this coming, even inner circle people, by the way.
Really? I see what you're putting down, but I don't know.
And when I mean inner circle, I mean like the deep inner circle.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So it was in Trump's office.
Yeah, 100%. That's all we can garnish right now. What was said, we don't know.
Or who said it.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we need to look up the logs from the last few days.
There's so much that we could go into here that could be really interesting, and maybe this isn't the time. It's just kind of a quick talk about what's going on here. Plus, there's a call here pretty soon that's pretty important for us. But I just think we have to be careful as a society that we are willing to give up our freedoms for so-called security. And it just feels like we're boiling frogs when it comes to that particular subject.
It's funny because Lisa said the same thing. Yeah, Lisa said the same thing this morning. So, Well, let's switch track really quick. Let's take 5 minutes. If you're an existing drone service provider, you're an existing drone pilot, you're an employee, you're a contractor, whatever. What do you think is the best strategy and tact moving forward? Like, if you're a DSP, do you reach out to your clients and talk about this? Or do you, what's your tact? I don't know if this isn't going to be mainstream news. I don't think I would email my clients about this. I would say, if you guys want to play it safe and send like holiday cards out or e-cards and say, if you have any questions about the new recent FCC order, please let me know. We're happy to discuss. Or like, I'm just curious. I mean, I think that when it comes to this particular DJI ban, it's not even we're going to call it the FCC ban, because that's what it really is FCC ban. It looks like it is in the AP.
Exactly. That's why I pulled that up. Because when you say the main media, whoever they are, doesn't mean people are going to see it and pay attention to it, because, I don't know, it's not Travis Kelce and what's her butt.
Okay. Would you email your clients though and say, we stay compliant regarding the new FCC ban, and if you have any questions, let us know? Because I feel like this year with the DJI ban, a lot of people are going to be very emotional about it. I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying that right now is a keen opportunity where people are going to be distracted. People are going to have feelings. And this could be a breakout moment for people who are very serious about their drone business.
I guess I'm one to fall on the side of communication is always best, to stay ahead of things.
Okay.
And I could see somebody having the other side of that, for example, I've got whatever, 20 clients, and I'm 99% sure 17 of them, they're either not going to care or they're not going to notice. And so you choose not to, because why stir the pot? Totally understand that perspective as well. It's probably not the tact I would take, though.
Okay. Well, I think one tact is for sure, if it's going to be difficult to get more units, I think people are going to be a lot more serious about how they fly. I think it's going to change.
Thought about that.
Yeah, I think it's going to change the tact of pilots specifically.
Mm-hmm.
How much so or in what direction, I don't really know. Because I always remember that they said that business people were going to be way more risky with drones than hobbyists because there was money involved, and it ended up being the complete opposite.
Yeah, that's true. Not the least of which, in terms of reasons, is because the business people are typically spending more on their drones. And there's some pucker factor involved in that on a regular basis. I also think about kind of knowing that all this is happening. If you are just using the example of a DSP and things are going to get very real in the next however long it takes for all these existing drones to kind of work their way out of the system, figuring out a way to make your product and service that much better such that you can charge more, such that you can buy the more expensive drone. You got to kind of be factoring that into your whole workflow and production process, if you will.
Wow.
I'd also be thinking about that. It's going to be interesting.
It's going to be very interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah. Indeed. So, well, if you have a question, askdroneu.com. We're going to be keeping the community up to date. I think there's a lot to be fleshed out here. It's going to be interesting to see, too, how the news handles this one. So, anyway, that's going to do it for us today. Again, if you have a question, ask Drone U, and we appreciate all of you. Keep taking flight. Keep taking flight. Enjoy what you love to fly right now and get the most out of it. And who knows what happens in the future? Maybe the American market pulls things out we've never seen before. Anti-gravity did it in 6 months. So I think we've got a bright and exciting future, as much as this sucks, as much as it is a roadblock. Things always come out because of this. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Keep your heads up, take flight, have fun, and we'll see you next time.